David King, welcome.
Morning, G.
What's your King's Gambit?
Last week we sat here and we said, now we're in the old one-day internationals. We're into the 20 to 40 over mark. We're just knocking around and just roll it, rotate the strike and just pick up the odd single here and there and nothing adventurous. Friday and Saturday, all good. Just ticking it over nicely. We lost 2 wickets on Sunday, Gerard. That wasn't meant to happen.
To set batsmen who don't jump down the wicket and hit the ball straight up in the air.
Seen them like peaches, just ticking it over. No, so it was a shock, I think, for Hawthorn to get Brisbane was a shock, and then Collingwood on the road. Everyone tells me they travel well. We don't see it very often, but that was a big upset, and we'll get into Fremantle later on, but I'm kind of glad we had a couple of upsets on Sunday because it was a pretty flat round up until then.
All right, so our big issue clearly comes out of those two games is both the restock of Hawthorn and Collingwood, who it just felt like we're regressing to the mean and the grind had set in, and then they get these hugely uplifting victories. And then very particularly what it means for the losers. The Lions are starting to amass injury, and Hugh McCluggage is a bad one. And Fremantle have lost 2 in a row, dropped 24%, and are about to hit the top 2 teams. So that's reality biting hard.
So we'll start with the Hawks. So great win. I really enjoy what Sam Mitchell's doing with them. He's got them playing an adventurous brand of football. We talk about what one player can do for your team. I think when Jath plays, they sometimes they just find a different energy. They play with a dare, and it wasn't necessarily him being best on ground or anything like that, but he just has moments. And when you look at the Hawthorn season so far, so we've only had 10 rounds of footy, and 7 of their contests have been against top 8 teams. So they've had a pretty tough run. So maybe we're seeing that they can stand up, they can hold up. I mean, you look at the comparison. Like Melbourne have played 2 teams in the top 8, Brisbane have played 2, the Suns have played 6. Are we judging them too hard? St Kilda have played 4. So I think the Hawks have done a really good job. A lot made of Mitchell not playing last week, and then he arrested and comes back in, has nearly 40 touches. But whenever they get the ball, they're a threat. They want to score. I look at Newcombe. He's a different player, isn't he? The rising star discussion's a good one, but let's just talk about players that are 20 and under. He's the number 1 rated player in the AFL that's 20 and under. So I'm not getting too consumed about who's played too many games and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So on the weekend, he has 27 disposals, 9 clearances, 14 contested possessions, and is the leading impact player on the ground with 12 score involvements. That's the perfect game.
Yep.
So really thrilled with what they've done with him and how they've handled him because, rounds 1 to 4, he was 50% half forward, 50% midfield. Since then, he's just become 100% pure midfielder. So I just think that how they've handled this kid and his transition into frontline AFL footy. There was a big talk about him. I think he signed like a 4-year deal when he signed that mid-year contract last year. Everyone's going, really? Why are they jumping so heavily into this guy? But now you see it. These rebuilds are full club things. So big tick to the Hawks, both on and off field.
Do you want to go straight to Brisbane or do Collingwood on the up before we switch to the examination of the 2 who got beaten?
Yeah, I think we'll look at Collingwood. We chatted about this last week. Craig McRae's language is different to other coaches. Okay, he's positive when he has to be, but when it needs to be said, it gets said. No excuse policy. Don't want to hear about how you're feeling, your emotions. I just want actions. Don't tell me you've got a runny nose. You're either playing or you're not.
Yep.
I don't want to hear the waivers. It's a no waiver type stance, and I think it's fantastic. They played a brand yesterday that was too hot for Freo to handle. Their pressure was intense. Their leadership is just first rate. I think Pendlebury going back into the middle has had a big impact on this group. I think that they lean on him a lot. And he's delivering in spades. The kid bobs up and kicks 4. He comes on as the super sub.
Yes.
You're not expecting that. Does that mean you play him as sub again, or does that mean you just play him now because he's kicked 4?
You play him because you just never quite know, do you? But the happenstance of Cox going out and Henry coming in is profound, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you know they defy a lot of the metrics because of how they play. But the one reason why they won, and so convincingly, was they were aggressive when they took possession of the ball, in terms of getting themselves out of traffic and getting through to that next layer all the time, and wanting have a real push and a real desire to score, which is not familiar for coaches that have taken over the reins in years gone by, but we see it from Mitchell and McRae. That's why we're bracketing them together. And then you don't often see the mix of power to score and then pressure when you lose control of the footy. And their pressure was so good yesterday, I think that Craig McRae would be saying, we now have other ways to win. It's just not on brilliance. It's just not on our senior players. It's just not on one person doing X, Y, or Z. It is about us just submitting to the opposition to a heat they can't handle.
Fremantle?
Well, I think this is the real Fremantle. And I get smashed for saying this by the Fremantle fans, and have a bit of fun with them. Tweet out last week about the flag men. They're not getting too many flag mantle tweets today, but I think that they've got to have a look at things, because it's not about what you do, and they're a chip mark behind the ball defensive half team, and then get the ball quickly forward to centre once you hit the halfway mark. Now that works to a point. I get that. Low cost on turnover because you're just so safe. But is it a true way of defending is my question. Okay, so when you absolutely have to defend, not with the footy, without the footy, the opposition are carrying the ball at you or kicking the ball, can you hold up? So I think they get a bit of a reality check. So too does the coach. He says the same thing. And then when you've got the ball, can you handle what the opposition are throwing at you? So the AFL average, in terms of what you should get from winning clearances, you should score 90 points per 101 clearances. They went at 39. You should score 70 points per 101 turnovers. Okay, so when you force the opposition into turnover, you get 70% strike rate, if you like. They went at 33%. So they just couldn't handle Collingwood when they actually got possession of the footy. So I think they have to have a look, and we've sat back, and people say they'll disregard this straight away. Will Brodie's had a great year, a fantastic start at Fremantle. But what he is what he is. He's a ball winner, and he played a really good game. His numbers, he had 36 disposals, 11 clearances, 20 contested, kicked a goal. They read really well, but he's as much the problem as he is the cure. So he's not a burst from stoppage player. He's not a guy that wins it and then gets the ball to the outside. He'll take territory. He'll quick kick, or he'll give a little handball. That was the old Clayton Oliver.
Yep.
And we see that the new black in midfielders is leg drive. You've got to get yourself from inside traffic to outside, and then the damage comes. So they smashed them at clearance. Or I shouldn't say they smashed them at clearance. It's break even at clearance, but for a large part of the start of the game, they smashed them at clearance, Fremantle. Yep. Darcy ends up with 11 clearances. He's not a leg driver. He's the ruckman. And Brodie ends up with 11 clearances. So 22 of your 44-1 clearances are from guys that don't leg drive. To me, that's a problem. So they need to find some leg drivers. Now, they've got a guy that's coming back in a couple of weeks. So we're all waiting for Fox to come back. Yep. But right now, that's an issue for them, getting the ball from inside to outside. So they've lost a bit of balance. They're a little bit impotent. They're not as damaging as you need them to be. They're not as damaging as the other top four teams. And there's a bit of a gap back to them if you want the honest truth.
Yep.
But they'll win a lot of home and away games.
And Brisbane.
Nothing to see here. This is one of those honest losses it's go to Tasman. At the start of the year, if you just said to me they're going to lose 5 games for the year, pencil them in. Which ones? I'd say the game in Tassie, that's a lock. That's a lock for a loss. Because they just don't go down there and get the chocolates. Historically, they didn't do anything wrong. They smashed them in terms of inside 50s. They scored 17 goals, 10. There was some scores left on the table. The umpiring we'll get to later on, but that had a bearing. I just think the Hawks played a seriously aggressive game. It's like playing tennis against a big server. You know, they just hit chalk all day. Just caught the lines with serving and
3 points.
3 points.
Three
you know.
points.
They're a tough side to play against Hawthorn at times. So I'm sort of forgiving that one because they've been so good for the last few weeks.
So they are accumulating injury, McCluggage now. So this is a period to absorb. So it is a test for them. So Danaher, then McStay back to back, and they were deficient tall yesterday, I think, and now McCluggage for a period of time. So yeah, they're maybe getting tested. I feel like notionally they've had a relatively good run with injury.
A great run.
So now they get tested a bit
for the last couple of years on exposed absentees. You know, they had a lot of injuries play at the back end of last year.
Yes, yeah.
So that's one we can never really assess from the outside. But in hindsight, the coaches will tell us in a quiet moment, "Hey, gee, he was lucky to play." Harris Andrews and those guys. But the big problem for them is they sit now 8-2 with Carlton. Brisbane have to finish top 2 to win it. Simple as that. And you'd say that the top position on the ladder is probably gone. That's off the table now.
Yep.
2 games clear on top. We haven't had a team 2 games clear. I went back 10 years. We haven't had a team 2 games clear on top of the ladder at round 10 for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So Brisbane's problem is they've got to keep those other teams at bay, and we're talking about Carlton, St Kilda, Geelong and Fremantle.
The best bits from round 10. So you want to shape this as who was the best individual performance?
There was a few.
There was.
I was rapt to see Stephen Coniglio get. Obviously, new coach comes in, new ideas, fresh approach, and they spun the magnets, as we like to sort of say, and moved full forward to full back, and moved some half forwards and back into the midfield. And Callum Ward got the boot back to the half back flank, and I just wanted to see Stephen Coniglio go back in and do it again. And sometimes the senior coach, can get a set on a player, and for whatever reason, you start seeing everything they can't do, not everything they can do. And I think that's happened a little bit with Stephen Coniglio. And I think he was a bit of the whipping boy for Leon. And not look, they've probably got a great relationship. But in sheer football terms, he's the first one that pays a price. Now, his performances have been down, but I think sometimes if people keep telling you you're no good, you will end up being no good. So I think to see him go back in the midfield and assume control, become a clearance winner, he's a pretty good ball user. So I think he was one of the performances of the weekend. Now, people will say, they were against no one and whatnot, but you still got to do it.
Yes.
You're still against Shuey and Kelly and Gaff and those sort of guys in the middle. So I was thrilled to see him go in. Jeremy Cameron, did you see his performance on the weekend?
I did.
We've got to start looking at him as a tall flanker, a half-forward style player, Gerard. And
not a key pillar.
Not a key pillar. He's not a centre half-forward type.
Marcus Bontempelli.
Awesome. 50-50 forward and midfield. Haven't really seen him do that. They didn't have a matchup for him in the end.
And Max King. Good night to kick straight.
Oh, dear. We talk about Max later.
So we picked that up?
Yeah.
Straight out of the news. Max King, 6 straight. Was it 6 kicks, 6 marks, 6 goals?
Yes.
Yeah. Good night to do that. The Means Test with David King. We're with Max King.
Yeah.
And his 6 goals straight.
Well, I think that there's very few players in our competition that if they have a big month in September, just change the course of the whole scope for your football team. And we've talked about Dustin Martin over the last few years just going crazy in the big games. And it's just being decided by what Dustin is able to do. I think Max King has that capability with St Kilda. Mm-hmm. If he was to have a big back 6 weeks of the season, and he's just starting to realise how damaging this guy can be. I think he's just starting to realise that he has an aerial ability that defenders can't go with. He's marking the ball a metre above the opposition's hands. He is.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Well, they can't even get a play past his elbows. And he's starting to learn. I showed some vision yesterday or last night. He actually led, instead of going to full forward into the goal square and leading out to a set play from a kick that was going to come inside 50 from about 60 metres out, he went next to the point post and led from the point post. So the traffic wasn't there. The ruckman Strawn didn't get a chance to play at it. The loose man, which was Dawson, he's standing in the goal square because that's normally where the ball goes. Top of the square, you either have a shot or you drop it to 10 to 15 metres out. He come from the pocket and stayed in a one-on-one on an undersized opponent and just chest marked the ball. And I thought, this guy is now starting to learn how to get himself into situations where the others can't compete. If he has, he could easily have a 15 to 20 goal final series, Gerard, and be the reason the Saints go deep, deep, deep. And I mean seriously deep. Mason Cox, remember Mason Cox against Alex Rance? This guy can have that sort of performance for the back half of the season.
Yep.
He is as good as anyone. And I know the Crows, and the messages are coming through, I know the Crows had no tall defenders, but this guy marks the ball a metre above all defenders in our competition.
Yep.
So 6 goals was the statement in a game where they looked like losing. They looked like that game was just out of their reach quite regularly. So the Crows were brilliant in their endeavour and their fight, but in the end it was Max King and Jack Sinclair, Cam Wilkie that said, "Nah, and Brad Hill, let's just get this done."
If you're a bloodstock agent and you were going to go all in on a bloodline, would you go all in on the Kings or the De Konings?
Oh, now that's a good question. They both have a tendency to spend some time in the paddock, Gerard. Both bloodlines. Bit of injury.
I think the De Konings are a little more sound than the Kings.
Well, yeah.
The Kings are a little more. I think the Kings might win you more Group 1s in total.
They'll win the bigger ones.
God, the De Konings have got something about them.
They both play full forward, Gerard. They're winning the big majors.
Yeah.
They're going to be top weight in all
of them. The De
of them.
Konings are going to come with some flashy wins, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Look, that's a great question. I was going to ask you, you're building a team.
Yep.
Okay. So there's 4 players: Max King, Charlie Curnow, Tom Hawkins, or Harry Mackay.
Oh, good choices.
Who are you? Give me. Have time to think about it, but I want in order your 4. They're all up against the wall, and you're building your forward line around who? Which one's first?
So Max King, Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay,
Tom
Hawkins. So from the here and now. So am I judging Hawkins with just a year or 2 left?
That's harsh.
Or do I have to?
I didn't think that through, those rules. No, just on winning the flag this year.
Oh, okay.
You're going to win the 2022 premiership. These 4 teams, or these 3 teams, are all on equal pegging, and you've got to nominate your forward to win you the grand final this year.
Oh, all right, I'll do that with the seedings.
All right.
I can't have a think about that, peeps. Max King, Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay, Tom Hawkins at full forward to win the flag for your team this year.
Have you seen a more underrated 45 disposals than Clayton Oliver's? No one's even talking about it anymore.
No, because
he just does it too regularly.
Yeah, but the game has no cachet. So if he does that against Fremantle in a game at the MCG that matters, he'll get the full tote odds then.
Right.
That game just has no real cachet, I don't think. So be as good as you like in that, but we'll check in on because you do it when he does it regularly when it really matters. Now.
I think he's moved into the Greg Williams mould where he has to do something quite extraordinary for you to even raise his name.
Yeah.
I think we've gone too hard on he's still a young player. We judge him so hard now. We're devaluing his 45 disposal game, Gerard. Do you realise what you're doing?
No, he still gets the 3 votes.
Yeah,
but it's just not the biggest story of the weekend. If he does that against Fremantle in the twilight on Saturday and Melbourne decimate a team who are coming out, if he does it against the Brisbane Lions, he'll get the full tote odds then.
Yeah. Gee, you're a hard man.
So let's do the debate now. If I could show you the full text. So people are at tipping point over the umpiring, but I'm really... Bring me specifics. Don't bring me generics. Don't give me the umpires are ruining the game. Give me the specifics of what's wrong at the moment. So the umpiring yesterday in totality in Tasmania was no good. 63, blow the whistle, interrupt the game over and over and over, no good. The Warner dissent versus what happens later, Cripps, totally agree, is that you can't marry the two up. So how did one get paid and not the other. But don't give me the game's a flaming mess because of the umpires. Give me the specifics of the problem. What's the core of the issue?
Confusion. Confusion's the core of it, and we're assessing every contest within an inch of its life. The whistle doesn't need to blow that regularly, Gerard. That's the core of the problem, and the dissent lasts for half a second, if not a quarter of a second. It's a split reaction of and then it's gone. If you can just withstand a little bit, have a little bit of tolerance, the game flows. The game moves on. The game has lost flow because the bloody whistle keeps getting blown. It was a disaster yesterday. That was comical that they paid a free kick to Pryor on the boundary line for the smallest of pushes.
Yes.
That's an error, right?
Yep.
We take that as an error. But then the umpire knows he's made an error. So he's trying to square it up in terms of paying a free kick out of the middle. That was not a free kick to Newcombe, okay? And then the ball goes into the middle, they drive it forward, and they pay a free kick against Harris Andrews. That is not our game, Gerard.
Nope.
That is not our game.
So that's poorly umpired.
Yeah, but that's happening too regularly. It is. I watch every game of footy. I've missed half a game this week because of the overlap, okay? And I can tell you, of the 9 games I watched this week, there was more whistle blowing this week than I've heard for a long time. And I know the numbers will come back. I mean, they say that's not right. But in 50-50, make a decision, don't make a decision, they've gone towards absolutely make a decision. Have some tolerance. Let the game flow. The players will sort it out. I think we've just gone too far with being over-officious. Do you feel that?
Yes.
And that's something we can change. Do something about this dissent rule. It is infuriating. It really is. We just need those that are making the decisions above. I'm not blaming the umpires themselves. I'm blaming those above the umpires to pull back. The fans are angry, Gerard, and in the end, it's their game. The media can say what they like. You can have your opinion, I can have mine, but our opinion has no more weight than the fan. And they are talking. And they're talking by not going to the footy. They're angry, Gerard.
So you're in the school that people aren't going to the footy because of the umpiring.
It's a factor.
Yeah.
It's a factor.
I think in the scale of factors of the COVID, of the public transport, of the car parking, of the ticketing, I don't think that's why people aren't going. I think that's why people are angry.
Angry, absolutely. So what are you going to go to the football?
So how many dissent free kicks were paid on the weekend?
I haven't got the exact number. I could get it for you. But it's not...
This is the one rule where just the act of it being paid creates an inferno. So it strikes me there's no other rule that just the single act of it being paid causes such a reaction. Would you agree with that?
Not necessarily, because I think that...
So we can't absorb... Say the Warner one was a mistake. It was a mistake. We can't absorb that as a community.
But it's not the mistake. It's a secondary mistake. So Warner bounces the ball, runs 8 metres, and the umpire calls too far. So already there's anger. Oh, he bounced the ball. So that's one umpiring error that becomes a 50-metre penalty and a goal off the back of the umpire making one error compounded into 2 errors into a goal. That is not our game. I'm sorry. We can disagree on this, and I'm angry about it because I want our game back. I want the players. We talk about the best players. We've had a bland weekend. Until Sunday, it was a bland weekend, and I just wonder whether we're letting the players separate the game or not. That's my point. I love footy, right?
Yeah.
But this is annoying me.
Yeah, I get the annoyance, but wasn't the best game the one that was most chronically over-umpired?
The best game.
So the best game was Hawthorn and Brisbane, wasn't it?
I love Friday's game. I thought the Swans and Carlton was a cracking
game.
Yeah,
sorry, but you just said we were having a boring weekend until we got to Sunday.
There was, I agree with that. Don't you think the rest of the games were boring? That's so 6 games, 6 of 9.
So the best 2 games. So I agree with you. The Carlton Sydney game was just utterly thrilling, and it had the dissent call in it. And the Hawthorn Brisbane game is nearly the best game of the year, and it was chronically over umpired. The game found a way in both of those.
Brisbane game the best game of the year.
Oh, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was close. I think there was like 65 free kick. The 2 goals from 3 whistle blows in 1 minute was enough for me. And there was so many ticky touch with free kicks. I'm not into umpire bashing. I'm not. they've got the toughest job in the caper. I don't think they're being given any favours from above, is my point.
Yeah.
So I'd like everyone to just, if you're at 9 out of 10 now with your blowing of the whistle, just come back
we're
to
at
7.
11.
Oh, no, the fans are angry.
Oh, right.
But I mean the umpires. If you see something and you're absolutely sure it has to be paid and it's really outside of the rules, blah, 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 pay it. But if it's just if it's on a knife's edge, I think they're blowing the whistle now more than ever. And I think we see this different, right? But I just want the game to be decided by the players. Get some flow back into the game.
Yes, I agree with that sentiment. I agree with that part of it. Carlton's own category. We'll put them in preliminary final integrity. We could just call it the Carlton category, though. They're up to 3rd. They're on the rise. We'll work our way through that with David King on the means test next. So they've risen to 3, the Blues.
They have, Gerard.
God, they're watchable, David.
Well, this coaching performance has to be seen to be believed. This is not the Carlton we know, Gerard. So I showed some numbers last night. Numbers are not everything, okay? But if there's one stat that tells you about coaching, it's your ability to win contested possession after the ball's left the clearance. So post-clearance contested. So when the ball's in flow and moves from 1-on-1 to 2-on, to a 2-on-3 or a 4-on-5 or wherever the ball goes, that next contest or the contests before your next score or have another stoppage. Melbourne are the best in the competition and Carlton are second best. So to me, any time a coach can orchestrate an outnumber, 3 generally beats 2. 2 always beats 1. 4v3, okay, a little bit watered down. Then you go all the way down to ball in forward half where you're generally outnumbered 12v10. 12v10, don't worry about that.
Yep.
Okay. So Carlton's ability to continually outnumber their opposition wherever the ball goes is frightening. And the last fortnight, they've been something like, there it is, plus 25 against GWS and plus 26 against the Swans. Now, they're big numbers. Plus 5's enough. Plus 5 means, particularly in your forward 50, if you can win contest in your forward 50, you will score. If you win contest in your midfield, you will get inside 50s. If you go contest win to contest win, you score. So plus 25 and plus 26 are huge numbers.
Yep.
So Melbourne are on average, I think it's plus 13 game to game, and Carlton plus 12. So that, to me, says the coach has everything right. He has the ability to create the outnumber. That's an audit on the coach's box. So I think Michael Voss is probably Coach of the Year right now. If we had such an award, which we don't, which I think we should have.
No, we have it at the end of the year.
Yeah, we give it to the people who win the flag.
No.
Generally.
The Coaches Association have a great record of giving it to. So Ken Hinkley won it. Nathan Buckley won it without winning the flag. That's actually a really good award at acknowledging exactly what you're saying.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. I'd like them to acknowledge it during the course of the season.
I don't think you can have a Coach of the Year on the run.
Coach, why
you
not?
can.
We have a coach.
We can't hand out the award.
No, we don't hand out an award monthly, but you can have a leaderboard. You can have we have the Coach Association Award for players. Why can't we have something for the coaches?
We can't be giving votes.
Why can't we have an idea of who the coach thinks? Who do the coaches?
That's a strange idea.
Well, I like strange ideas.
Give me your top 3 coaches of the year right now. It's a subjective measure, not
it
empirical.
is.
That's the best part of it. So Voss at 1.
Voss at 1. You would have to say Fremantle have come from nowhere to be in the conversation. You'd probably have Longmuir at 2. And at 3, you'd probably have to have Simon Goodwin for being 10 zip. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with Voss. I would have agreed with Longmuir, but it's
he's done well to get him to here, though, hasn't he? From where they were to here.
Yep. I think I would have Ratton in my 3.
Yeah, Ratton's a good one.
But I would definitely have Goodwin in my 3.
But wouldn't you like to know what the coaches think, Gerard?
Yes.
That's my
We'll
point.
get that at the end. That's right.
my point. At the end's too late.
Some of the individuals at Carlton. So Jacob Wiedering and Charlie Curnow as the bookends.
Yeah.
Just give me your assessment of both of them.
How many All-Australians would they have at the moment? Wow. So the thing that's happening now is Walsh has gone to 50-50 half forward midfield and has become a more damaging player than what he is full-time midfield, because he's more of a laser with his feet rather than and creative with his handball rather than a contest winner. So the Bulls are doing what they do, and they're giving it to the distributors in Fisher and Walsh, who are then doing what they do. And without Mackay, they're still able to make it work inside the forward 50. The smalls at ground level are unbelievable. So they don't want for any more in terms of their roles. They just need to basically get more out of the individual players in those roles. So Durden's now become a serious player. We know about Owies. We know about Fisher's crumbing ability. It is just brilliant to watch. I don't know how long it can survive. It's a tough way to go for 22 weeks, is what I will say. Melbourne have shown they can do it. Let's see if Carlton can.
So we've had a couple of looks at Curnow without Mackay. The first week was the good team performance rather than him individually. He had a couple of moments late, and then he just commanded that game for a period of time on Friday night.
Yeah.
So great to see, because the point has been well made, and Sam just documented the litany of injury with that knee when we were together on Crunch Time, as he hadn't had a crack at it, and then we hadn't had the chance of watching him had a crack at it. We'd all been shortchanged, but there it is before us at the moment.
Gee, Jared, can I give you a little bit of feedback?
Please.
It's not going well for me here.
But in England, they have a manager of the month every month.
Oh, talking absolute drivel. You just make this crap up. There's mixed results, Jared. There's no doubt about that. I like different ideas. I like the fact that we can recognise people for excellence along the way instead of just at one point in time, Jared.
Okay.
You go to this award every year. They've given you the best media performer every year for 10 years. Do you feel like that award has lost a bit of its lustre, Jared?
They're just voting. You get voted out soon enough. That was teal. Teal is the colour of everything at the moment. Not since the Corns Boys in 2004 has teal been so in vogue. The curiosity is clearly the interim coach, which is a great subcategory in the game's history. I don't know whether we've ever seen a more powerful example of it than yesterday. A team that 2 weeks ago was self-diagnosed as being boring, kicked 21 goals.
They did kick 21 goals. I tell you this, I love when they give a young player an opportunity. Left footer at halfback. Where is his name? Spelt W-E-H-R. Jacob Ware. He kicked the ball yesterday, Jerry. He's like all left footers. They just flush it. He kicked the goal yesterday, give them plenty of excitement. So I like seeing fresh opportunity, and that's what an interim coach will provide. You know, as we said, they spun the magnets. Ward went down back. The full forward went to full back, and things just worked. I mean, they're going to have bigger challenges. The West Coast did put a score on them. Well, the West Coast, they kicked 13 goals. Well, the West Coast have been scoring 4 and 5 goals a game the last month.
Yep.
So that's a massive concern. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what they've got in the next couple of weeks. But it's a long period to be the interim coach.
Yeah. But that was just classically unshackled, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Our starting point is to unshackle, and then we'll work on the layers after that.
So I don't mind the fact that you don't worry about defence too much, because you need to see players express themselves for a little while. So maybe you're right. The unshackling will be unshackled, Gerard, until they take a smashing on the scoreboard.
And you can only do that as the interim coach, which is the phenomenon of being the interim coach.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It is good to see. I'm wrapped for Mark that he got to win, and it's a tough gig up there at the moment, isn't it? I mean, they've had to get outsiders come in. Dean Solomon comes in. It's just a tough place to be when you've got this sort of turmoil in the background. Things don't run smoothly.
You had the worst bit out of that too, the injury to Josh Kelly.
The Josh Kennedy.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, Josh Kennedy of the Swans. So it's so sad to see a guy who's fighting for his career. We all know he's closer to the end than the start, but to tear the hamstring so badly, it looks like a long-term injury. And then where does he play when he comes back? Someone will assume his role now in the midfield. The Swans are lacking that contested brute. He's lacking leg speed now. We're not going to talk him down. He's on the verge of 300 games, I think. So this is a real concern. So, no, I feel sorry for him. I felt sick when I saw him go down. Let's just wait and see how it unfolds and what the Swans tell us in terms of delay.
You want to do opinion polling. Your eye is drawn to this one. Kingy wearing thin, crap ideas and too many stats. You can manufacture a stat to support anything. 79% of the audience wants King off SEN, which is then in caps, followed by you gotta love Kingy's analysis. Informed, accurate, balanced and equitable. Thanks, SEN.
No, I'm going to give your man 615. I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to have next Monday off, Gerard. No, I'm with him.
No fear.
79% have got a voice, Gerard.
They got that right. So Richmond have got a lot right in recent times. But I thought that they have assumed ownership of Dreamtime at the G. Mm. It started as an Essendon idea and the long walk is a beautiful part of it still. But the way those players have demonstrated the significance and what it means, and the pageantry in the pre-match on Saturday night was like nothing that we've seen before.
It's become one of the marquee nights on the calendar, hasn't it? I mean, there's just the energy. Everyone wants to be there. The night game adds that extra feel. I get that, but the way they do it is terrific. And they always seem to really play well, Richmond, on that night. I don't know what the record is on Dreamtime night, but they just seem to win it all the time. They seem to play a great brand of football. Prestia was back in form. Baker's a phenomenal player that was found from obscurity really a while back now, but we've talked about him a lot. But they've got so many players that they can put into different roles. Like Rioli at halfback's become a serious player. Edwards can play anywhere. Martin does his thing. Short can go anywhere. So they've just got so many versatile players that wherever Damien sees an issue, he's got the ability to put that fire out pretty quick. They're great to watch. It's been terrific to see Richmond get healthy again. A real shame that they lose Lynch and Lambert for a little while by the looks. Richmond healthy. They've done this before, Gerard. They tailor the back half of the season to just be healthy at a run at the finals.
Yep.
It would be a scary final to come up against Richmond anywhere if they're healthy. And everyone says, that's a flippant comment, you're basing that on nothing. And you're probably right. At the moment, it's based on very little.
Well, it's a hunch.
Yeah.
And it's a respect, a long one respect, an admiration more than anything else.
Yeah.
And they're progressively reinventing themselves. They've padded their wins against 4 poor teams. No, that's unfair. Against 4 teams in the lower reaches, but the Hawthorn form looks all right a week on.
Yeah.
And now they move into a phase. So it's a bad time to lose Lynch. That's what it felt like to me. They've had 4 games where they could have absorbed him not being there, and he'd played himself into great form. And they just lose him at the most inopportune moment.
So just to give my man 79% a bit of stats. So we track the core 4 with the footy, without the footy, your ability to score from clearance and the post-clearance contest, which is coaching. They rank over the last month, number 1 in the comp with the footy. Their ability to get the score on the board is supreme, best in the comp. 5 without it and getting better. That was 12 3 weeks ago. Yep. Now it's up to 5 for this month. They're awful at clearance, below mid-table, and third ranked in terms of winning contests around. They just continue to win contests. So their numbers are tracking back, not to the Richmond of old, no, but to a very, very dangerous commodity. And that's all they need to be right now.
Essendon, how did you come away feeling about Essendon?
No, they had a go. So tick, right? But it's sort of a discussion we were having the other night. Should you have to ask for effort?
So this would be my point. So Anzac Day, they had a go, and it was sort of a medal of valour. Really?
Yeah.
And Dreamtime, they had a go. Well, that's a medal of valour. No, that's not it. So you have to bring that every week, and then you've got to sort out what you're doing within your game.
Yeah. So this is my frustration with Essendon, okay? So on all the things that I track, and you can say what you like, but at clearance, they're really poor in terms of coming away with a positive scoreboard return from clearance, what they give up versus what they score. And then post-clearance contest, they're also very poor. So why not look at a different midfield? I'm sick of seeing Parrish, Merritt, Shield, or McGrath. The only magnet move in Essendon's midfield is whether it's McGrath or Shield. That's it. Why not give Hobbs a chance? Why not throw Perkins in there? Instead of hiding him on a half-forward flank, just give them prime minutes. I'd start the game with the kids and say, hey, go and show us it's your turn. Parrish has had a pretty good year, okay? So leave him in there and maybe challenge the others to do something a bit different. Because if you never trust these kids, you're going to turn them into bit-part players across a half-forward flank. They are midfielders in their former under-18 life. Give them the keys and let them grow. That's what other teams are doing, and I just feel like Essendon have an overvalued belief in their core midfield group.
Yeah, so we'll see you next Sunday in the twilight against Port Adelaide over there.
Against Port.
We'll see what that looks like. And the pressure index is always on the coach, so generically over the coaches. You wanted to play around with, what do you want to hear from your coach?
Yeah, we got a few different versions, haven't we?
Yep.
Do you want to have a listen to them?
Please.
First?
Which ones would you take us through?
Let's start with Chris Fagan, the Brisbane loss.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game. I look at all the statistics and pretty much all the areas that we like to do well in, we have done well in, yet we still lost the game. I think the reason for that is that we weren't as good defensively tonight as what we have been all year. We allowed our opposition to score 117 points, which is something we rarely do. So when we have a look at the tape, we'll be certainly having a look at that to see, where we can improve for next week. If you have a look at our season so far, right? So we've just had a block of 5 games where we've been on the road for 4 of those 5 games. So we've won 4 and lost 1 by 5 points. And the first block of 5 games, we won 4 and lost 1 by 10 points down at Geelong. Basically, I think our boys never gave up tonight. They kept trying. We gave away too many free kicks, which resulted in scores to the opposition. They kicked 9 goals from free kicks, which is too many. And that's the reason why they won the game.
I love that analysis. I love that, just that little succinct version. The players would have got the same message. Nothing to see here, boys. Yep, it's a loss. Don't worry, you're going to lose 4 or 5 this year. This is a healthy loss. We've had 2 healthy losses for the year. Move on. So I like that messaging. Okay, so no one's panicking at Brisbane after a loss in Tassie, and you wouldn't expect them to either. Okay? Let's have a listen to Justin Longmuir after the Fremantle loss to Collingwood.
Everyone was getting way ahead of himself. And if you get way ahead of yourself in footy, you don't even need to get way ahead of yourself. You get marginally ahead of yourself in footy. It gives you a reality check, and we've gotten that.
Oh, that's a scary one if you're a player. That means that it could be the old, not that it's mouth guards, but it's certainly a verbal bashing that's coming. And that's you don't ever want to hear your coach sort of saying that. So I just think that between the two, one's clearly a healthy loss and the other one is, oh no, that's an unhealthy one. And then there's the investment. So the investment in the player. So I want to hear Luke Beveridge, and I don't think for a minute Luke Beveridge believes some of the stuff that he was saying here. But have a listen to it and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, I've got to be really careful here. Yeah. Because he's been so dominant. And then, there are reasons why he wasn't in the second half. That's all I'll say. Okay.
So I think that's Bevo supporting the player in a public forum to get everyone to have a look at what's happening with Norton. Is he being held? Is he being checked? Is he being blocked? So this is front page for all the umpires out there as an investment for next week and beyond, Gerard. I like the long-term play from Bevo. Got the result and got the investment. Everyone's looked at it over the weekend. What's Bevo talking about? Let's go and have a look behind the goals vision. Is he being held? So job done. So the press conference can be used in so many different ways. And I think it's a skill what Bevo's done. And I think he'd be sitting back today chuckling at all of us lunatics running around trying to work out, is that a hold? Is that a block?
I don't think anyone's found anything yet to make the case.
There's nothing there, Gerard. There's nothing there. As I said last night.
The fairies in the bottom of the garden.
If Sam Collins was wearing a Bulldogs jumper and defending like that, Bevo would be saying, that is the best defensive game I've seen for a Dogs defender for 2 years. But because he's wearing the other jumper and stopping their best forward, he had to say something. And I do think it's an investment in looking after your number one man.
All right, the seedings. Oh, I've got to give you my forwards before we get to the seedings. So I think I would go to win the flag this year.
This year, yep.
I think I would go Harry Mackay 1,
Ooh.
presuming I get him back from injury. So
Yeah, healthy and all that stuff.
Tom Hawkins 2. I think I'd still go Charlie Curnow through at 3 and sit Max King at 4.
4?
You can revisit. I could revisit it in 2 years' time, but Max is still in that phase of 6 straight and 1-5. I
23rd
feel
of
like
May,
the
just
others
write
are
that down.
more dependable this year, not trajectories. You said it had to be this year
Whateley says 4th for King.
in a good field, 4th in a good field.
It's a good field.
All right, seedings for Red Energy, moving house. Call local energy retailer Red Energy. So 4's in a state of flux, I feel. We both dropped Fremantle last week.
Yeah.
They're clearly not going back in.
No.
So, you'd have to say we saw that coming.
Your seedings have been a bit better than mine. It
happy
really
with my
it pains me
seedings.
to say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you don't give them as much attention, I don't feel. But maybe you do. Maybe you've changed. Since the sponsors come on board, I feel like you've shifted.
No, I'm throwing them all around the joint.
Well, Melbourne and
I'm
Brisbane
making
are a
a-
lock. Melbourne and Brisbane
No.
are what?
Nope. Nope.
What do you mean?
I don't accept that as a rule any longer.
Well, hang on. Let's go from 4 then.
4?
The Saints for me.
Yeah, I'm going to leave St Kilda at 4. There's a few. I could be tempted on a few, but let's let a couple more weeks run.
What have you done?
St Kilda at 4.
Carlton at 3 for me.
Yeah, you've
Up 1.
You're under on Carlton.
I have, but
Yeah.
but at 4 wasn't horrible last week.
No,
Up 1 to 3, little elevation for me. You're 3.
Brisbane Lions at 3.
Oh no!
Couple of injuries.
Oh,
A game they wouldn't have expected to lose.
you haven't.
Going to hit the testing material. They're just not as watchable as the other group.
Oh, gee.
2, Carlton on the rise. They are pleasing to the eye.
I'm sticking with the rules we set less than 7 days ago.
Yeah, no rules.
Melbourne and Brisbane are a lock in that order until round 15. You agreed on that 7 days ago.
I did. I now renege.
One game later.
I renege. Lions lost. Carlton continued to win. So I'm happily sitting Carlton at 2 then. And Melbourne is 1. They're now 2 games clear. I think that's an accurate reflection.
Yeah, no, that's about right. And still not playing their best. I still think they've got so much scope for improvement.
You just bring what's needed.
I just wonder if the coaches could tell us who their coach of the year would be.
1300 736 736. Our seedings are powered by Snowy Hydro, a leader in renewable energy. Switch to Aussie-owned Red Energy today.